biggest thing about traveling and just taking your kids everywhere you go, and that's what we did.
Information can overwhelm people and cause people to do certain things, even if it's not the right thing. Welcome, my friends, to the Be Somebody podcast. As you know, on this podcast, we are focused on living intentionally. Be Somebody is that call to action for you to make something of your life. Always level up, whether that's in your career or from a personal standpoint. Today, I have a very special guest, a dear friend of mine, and I met this man just a few years ago through a mutual contact. Ever since, we have had some phenomenal discussions, and he's somebody that I look up to in many ways. Let me introduce you to my dear friend, Beirne Chisolm. Beirne, welcome to the podcast, my man.
Thank you, Bobby. It's good to be here. It's good to see you. It's good to see your space.
Well, thank you.
And it's fun to be on the podcast.
It's awesome to have you here. And I told you about this before I ever launched the podcast. I was like, dude, Beirne, as soon as I do this, I need you here. And there are so many reasons for that. But one of the reasons is because you live a more intentional life than most people I've ever met.
Thanks.
And I think that that is one of the reasons why when you and I met a few years back, we just hit it off.
We did. There was absolutely some energy there when we met at lunch. And I've admired what you're doing. You know what my son does. And just the whole concept of how you run your things and how you've grown your business. Really interesting to me to see you thrive. So it's good. You're a good example of be somebody.
Well, thank you, my friend. Also, we need to give a shout out to Beirne's son, Miles. I went to lunch a couple years ago with Beirne and Miles. Miles is more than an up-and-coming videographer and photographer. He's really good at what he does, and he covers a lot in the entertainment and concert space. So I'm going to actually drop his Instagram handle on the podcast so that you can go follow him. Miles, you're a stud, dude. And your dad is a freaking rock star. So, Beirne, you've got 2 kids, correct?
Got 2 kids.
And you have lived this life that I find so fascinating because you do a lot of stuff outdoors.
Yep.
You care about your health.
Yep.
You are actively making choices so that you can be around longer. Anytime I talk to you, you are one of the guys that's not here, but you're here.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that I admire about that because you're present. Like, you're never the dude who I'm worried about that's going to be like, oh, actually, just give me a second here while I respond to this. And you're pseudo listening. Like, that's not you. And in today's world, that's hard.
Yeah.
And so walk me through this. How have you developed this mindset of just being present?
Well, a couple things. Since I'm older, I haven't had a cell phone in my hand since I was a kid, so to speak. So all the businesses I've run in the past were a little more traditional. The phone hung on a wall, had a cord, and all of that stuff. So when you're not used to that pattern that you've had for so long as a youngster or as you grow up, it's a lot easier for me to put it down. Certainly I'm on my phone a lot because it's the most amazing device on the planet.
Yep.
Any question you want, you can answer it. And I'm a curious guy. So I dive into things every day. I'm always learning new stuff. And that's one of the things about being curious, being out there is just, wow, I've never heard of that. Let me look into it. And so having that in your hand or on your desk or whatever allows you to go down that route. But I'd rather be outside. I'd rather be doing fun stuff with people rather than worrying about, looking at a screen. So
I love that. So this is something that I know about you. You love skiing.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's one of the reasons you ended up in Utah, if I'm correct.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Grew up in New York. We skied in southern Vermont all the time. We had a little tiny A-frame, probably about the size of this room. And we'd go skiing on weekends. And it's just something our whole family did. And the ski bug caught me early. And we'd ski 2 or 3 weekends a month, 4-hour drive from New York to southern Vermont to the little house. drive up Friday night with the family, drive home Sunday night, and then I ended up graduating high school early in January, and I had a plan early on that I was going to go live in the Vermont house for the winter and ski at the ski area. It's called Mountain Snow, Southern Vermont, all winter. And my parents were like, yeah, sure, of course you're going to do that. Well, I planned it all out, and that's what I did. I graduated on Friday, and Friday night I drove to Vermont.
This is so you,
And
by the way.
I lived in our Vermont house for the winter and skied. I'd already bought my ski pass, and I ended up getting a couple of waitering jobs and stuff, and just did whatever I could, but I just skied every day. And I just had that bug. And before that, we were looking at colleges and stuff, and both my parents went to Ivy League schools. My dad went to Williams, my mom went to Smith, my uncles went to Dartmouth. And there was a lot of pressure to do with the Ivy League school thing, and it just wasn't me. So I started looking around for coming west. I'd never been west of New Jersey, basically. And I'm like, I got to do something else. Otherwise, I'll probably stay in the East Coast my whole life. Did a lap with my mom in 11th grade. We went to University of Colorado Boulder. I swore I was going to go there. Beautiful school. Looked at Colorado College in Colorado Springs. They had a really unique block plan. Really liked it. Had a friend who was going there and she loved it. Looked at University of Denver. Wasn't that anything. Came to Salt Lake City, saw Westminster. Great school, just too small. It's basically high school again.
Yeah.
Last school we saw is University of Utah. It was a spring day. Guys are skateboarding. There's more beautiful women than I've ever seen in my life. The dorms happen to be gorgeous, and there are 7 ski areas a half an hour away from the dorms. And they have a great business department. So I'm like, okay, this checks a lot of boxes. They had rolling admissions. I had great grades. I got in, no problem.
Yeah.
So I graduated early, went to Vermont, was already accepted at the University of Utah. It just flowed. So skied all winter, came home. I worked at a tennis club in the summer as the tennis assistant. Finished that up. Got in my car, drove, never had been here except for that one trip, drove to the University of Utah, and been here ever since, yeah.
So then how do your parents feel about this? All of a sudden, their burn is across the country.
They weren't all that thrilled, but the reason I ended up here is because my mom's full Swiss, and her parents came through Ellis Island from Switzerland, settled right outside of New York. My grandfather ran a little tiny Swiss watch company, of course, Swiss and watches.
Yep.
He started coming to Utah, and specifically to this little magical place called Alta. And he got to know Alf Engen, who ran the ski school there. And he thought Little Cottonwood Canyon, and especially Alta, reminded him more of Switzerland and Europe than anywhere else he'd seen in the US. So as kids growing up, my parents would come out to Utah with their parents, with my grandfather, and would ski, and we kept hearing about this magical place. So there was a draw already to Utah, and then Alta, and then I got here, but that's part of all of it. So my dad wasn't thrilled because he wanted me to do a different school thing.
Of course.
Be a financier in Wall Street, and that just wasn't my world. That's what my dad did. He was a Wall Street guy, and I couldn't do that. It's soul crushing.
Well, I'm like sitting here, like, the burn that I know, that's not you.
No.
And so this makes perfect sense.
No, everyone, it's
like
funny
a
when
movie,
when I came out here, everyone's like, oh, you're from California. And I was like, no, I'm from New York. And they're like, you don't seem like a New Yorker. And, I had my tennis racket and my skateboard and, blonde, big bushy blonde hairdo. And everyone's like, yeah, you're definitely a California kid. I'm like, no, I'm a New Yorker. But it just worked. And, Utah became home, and I graduated from the U, and again, kept moving, graduated on a Saturday, Monday morning flew to Maui, never had been there.
You knew this was coming, and I'm glad you went here.
Yeah, and then I lived on Maui for a couple of years. We were going to go for the summer to be windsurf. I was teaching windsurfing at Deer Creek here, and getting involved in the surf and windsurf industry, and ended up living there 2 years. Then came back to Salt Lake because I was teaching skiing at Alta with Alf Engen. We were bouncing back and forth between Maui and Salt Lake. Not a bad way to do it.
And you're saying at this point, were you married? Were girlfriend?
No, this was my brother.
Okay.
So my brother's younger than me. He followed me out to University of Utah.
Okay.
And actually my older sister, she transferred to the University of Utah as a junior once I got in. She was in a little upstate New York college called Hartwick, and she didn't like it. I'm like, I'm going skiing. So
This is pretty
3 of the
good.
4 kids in my family ended up in Utah because of me.
I love that.
But anyway, my brother and I were going back and forth to Maui and playing around in the windsurf world. And that's where we started one of our companies called Chisco, Chisolm Company. And we created this sports watch band called The Band. And it was a double wrap watch band, webbing and Velcro, because we were getting our butts handed to us in the waves. We were brand new to big ocean windsurfing and surfing. And we'd show up late to our restaurant jobs and get fired. And so we stole the idea of a surfboard leash that wraps around your ankle because it doesn't come off, and turned that into a watch band. And that was 1985, 80-ish. Yeah,
1
85.
year after the epic Van Halen album.
Exactly. And we played around. We were kind of bringing the business back and forth between Utah and Maui. We'd load everything in a couple of Foot Lockers. And we were sewing the watch bands ourselves and selling them and trying to make it go. And then we realized we probably had something. And we went to our very first trade show and did really well at the show and hired some reps. And it was we were off to the races.
And thus began the trade show life.
The trade show life. But I'll back up. You talk about moving and moments in time where things get affected. So in late 86, we had started the business. We were trying to futz around with it. Our mom got sick, and she was gone 5 months later.
Oh my gosh.
So in early 1987, we lost her, and literally my brother and I went, could be us. No guarantees in life. Let's create a business where we can have fun, enjoy life, be productive members of society, make some money, but it really wasn't about the money. It was about skiing at Alta. My brother ran the race department, was part of the race crew up there. I was on ski school, and going to Hawaii and being able to play in the water and the waves. And our logo was the mountain and the wave. The mountain was for Alta, the wave was for Maui. But we realized in 1987, and that's when we turned the business on full time, we went, okay, we have to commit to enjoying life because it could be taken away from us that fast. Yeah. Our mom was super healthy, got a very bizarre, strange brain disease, and was gone. And so it just changed our whole attitude about being on the planet. Let's go have fun. And originally, we were going to say, well, you travel for 6 months, I'll run the business, you travel, and then we'll tag team, and then I'll disappear for 6 months. In reality, that doesn't work because you come back after 6 months, you have no idea what's going on. Yeah. It takes you a while to get back in the groove of things, blah, blah, blah. So we basically started the month on, month off. And we would share time with a house that we bought on Maui. So we were on Maui. We had a little apartment for a while. One of us would be on Maui, one of us would be here in the office for a month, and then we'd switch. And
I imagine you're still communicating during this time.
Yeah.
But no cell phones.
No, we had cell phones, we had landlines, we had fax machines. Remember those?
Yeah.
Buddy?
Oh, I remember those.
We had FedEx. Our FedEx driver knew us. He'd bring our mail to us and stuff, and we'd check in with the office every morning. And Maui's 4 hours ahead or behind, of Salt Lake, so it was actually great. Get up in the morning and you can talk to the office and everything. Here in Salt Lake, it's noon, and by 1 o'clock, the wind's blowing. It's 5 o'clock here. You can go play in the water. And then, I used to work late nights and early mornings and stuff like that, and then play the rest of the day.
I love that.
But we did that for 25 years, pretty good lifestyle, and built the business up. And certainly there were times where we both had to be here and work really hard. There's good months and bad months like any business. But the goal was we had created a lifestyle company before it was ever a thing.
Yeah.
No one knew what that meant. We didn't know what it meant. We just went, this is what we want to do.
Yeah.
And we were totally connected via the internet, obviously. And so we were getting our emails every day and all that, but it was like, and we had a kind of a philosophy when we're here in Salt Lake in the building, we're working on the business or in the business. And when we're on Maui, you're a little further removed, we're working on the business. And it was good for goal setting and just kind of taking that broader view back. We call it the 50,000 foot view of saying, what do we want to do? How do we want to get the business moving. So it was fun.
So then,
Yeah.
are you and your brother still in business together?
We are not. He's on Maui full time. Has a beautiful house. Sold the house that we had together. Moved up country with his wife and built a new custom home. He does some consulting like I do. He does some real estate. He was in town last month, so he's a good kid. But we're not in business anymore together.
Were there ever times in business where you were just looking at each other like, oh my goodness, I just want to kill you?
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our first office was smaller than your office right there, and our desks were back to back. So if we slid our chairs back, we bumped each other.
Little bumper cars.
Yeah. I mean, we were in our house for a long time, a little rental house. Then we moved to a little tiny office, literally 1,000 square feet. Then we moved to a little bigger office. And then we bit the bullet and leased a space and built an office out. That was like 6,500 square feet. And then that was a 5-year lease. And after that, we bought a 40,000 square foot building and remodeled the whole thing and leased out a third of it to another company because we didn't need it all. Yeah. And then we ended up taking the whole thing over time. So
at this time, I mean, you start off with the watch band.
The band.
Right?
Yeah.
But then are you just developing your own products after this? Do you just see a need and, hey, we can do that? Or are you acting almost as a shipping station for other products where you're like, hey, we have a warehouse, we can store your products, we can help you with the logistics, we can ship those out?
Good question, and a little of everything. So we were in the water sports world, so we had the band, which was the watch band. Then we were in the ski world at Alta. So we started, our next round of products were ski products. We created the Velcro strap around the top of the ski boot. It's called our trademark was Racer Wrap. And we had a bunch of our Maui roommates were all US ski team members. And they're like, we need a really super solid Velcro strap around the top of the boot. So we started making Racer Wraps. We started then doing custom products. We made a strap for rollerblade called Roller Wrap. Really creative. Velcro strap became de facto. It's just built in every ski boot.
Yes.
It's not, we didn't ever patent it or anything. It was just one of those products. And we had boot carriers and ski straps and just your basic accessories. Basically anything with webbing and Velcro, since we had miles of that in our warehouse, what could we make with that?
Yeah.
And then that led to keychains and wallets and neck lanyards and eyeglass cords and dog collars and leashes and bowls and kid toys and back. So it was all tchotchke little accessories. Most everything was under $20 retail. Most everything, was $5-6.
And at this time, how are you selling these? Because you're in an era where you start this before the internet.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you mentioned you go to trade shows, things like that. But then there was probably, I don't know when you and your brother decided to go your separate ways, but I imagine the internet was very much alive.
Oh, yeah.
When you did that.
Sure.
So walk me through that transition real quick.
Well, see, we did the original. We bought the big building. We bought forklifts. We did all of our own pick, packing, and shipping because there was no such thing as a 3PL.
Yeah.
So we had customer service on the phone, answering the phones, taking orders. We had people in our warehouse pick, packing, and pulling all of our orders every day. We had people, production people building product. We had office managers. We had sales guys. We were wholesaling, so we sold from Walmart right on down to every mom and pop sporting goods shop around. So we had and we were in about 25 countries. We had distribution in other countries.
That's amazing.
But it was all small dollar stuff.
Yeah.
And so our main venue was trade shows. Trade shows were really big at the time, and we did dozens of shows a year because our products were non-sport specific for the most part, non-seasonal specific, non-gender specific. They were just tchotchke accessories.
Yep.
Watch bands, wallets, keychains, fun stuff.
Massive audience.
You'd sell everywhere. So we sold, drugstores, convenience stores, mass market, box stores, more specialty, bike shops. I mean, you name it. So we could sell everywhere. We had thousands and thousands of accounts. As the internet came around, more people started ordering that way. And we did direct to consumer. We send a little mailer out a couple times a year. We had thousands of people on our mailing list, and we'd sell you, just like you would back in the day. You'd send a check or a credit card, fill out an order form. Once the internet started, then we put our website together, of course, and did more of that. But trade shows was really where we sold to our world because we didn't do a lot of direct to consumer.
Is it fair to say that your entire career was adapt to survive?
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. The other is just, I was the kid with the paper route. I always did my own thing along with other people. And our dad was great. He's like, if you want to go spend money on your toys or whatever, you're going to have to figure out how to earn it. So I was the kid on my bike, had the paper route. I had a lawn cutting business in high school. I sold everything door to door. I mean, my brother and I, we sold burpee seeds and candy bars and light bulbs. I'm sure our neighbors saw us coming and went, don't answer the door. It's one of those Chisolm kids. They're going to try to sell us something.
That's when the East Coast got the no soliciting signs?
Yeah, exactly. But what if you're a no soliciting sign salesperson?
Right.
Then you have to knock on their door.
Absolutely.
To sell them a no soliciting. Old joke. But we would do fairs in our driveway and charge kids to play skee ball or something. And we'd go to the pet store and buy 50 fish and you'd win a goldfish.
I love this.
I mean, and we were just always figuring ways to have fun. We were right around the corner from an amusement park called Playland. It's still there. It's one of the only county-owned, it's a cool Art Deco amusement park.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's where we grew up. It's around the corner. But everyone parked on our street to go to the amusement park. So we had lemonade stands, but we had 3 flavors and bubble gum. And we'd catch all these people before and after the shows.
So smart.
And no, just hustlers.
See, but I appreciate that because I see you recognized opportunity. Sometimes I see kids in my
neighborhood. We wanted to buy toys.
Well, but still, that's opportunity, right?
Right.
I see kids in my neighborhood. There are bajillion parks in my neighborhood. There's 5 parks within 5-minute walk, 2-minute drive, right? And I see kids setting up right outside their houses in cul-de-sacs and on the corner. And I think to myself, one of these days, I haven't done it yet, but one of these days, I'm just going to walk up to them and say, hey, you're going to make 10x or 100x if you literally go to that park on a Saturday.
Right.
And soccer games galore all day long.
Right.
You could be there for 1 hour
and make more money.
And make more money than sitting here for 10 hours on a hot summer day, right? Because cars aren't going to stop anymore. But you get people where they're already sitting, where they're already, they have their kids with them, and it's oh, hey, I want that.
We had the captured audience. They were parking in front of our house to go to Playland. So, yeah, but it was always that way. We're always going, okay, how do we make a buck here and there, do that, do this. We got to college. My brother came out. He ended up living with me for a while, and we created B&G Distributors, Beirne and Greg, and we sold stereo equipment and windsurfing gear out of our apartment.
Amazing.
And our UPS driver was cracking up. He'd show up with these boxes. He's like, what are you guys doing?
Because one day it's stereo equipment.
Well, we had the front, our living room was inventory.
Of course.
So as the door would open and there's wetsuits hanging there and windsurfer sails and booms and stereo equipment and office chairs.
Amazing.
We had a little catalog and we were always doing something.
See,
Chisco kind of was the bigger one that we both ran with it. And that was, again, after our mom died. And we kind of went, this is just what we should do.
Yeah.
We love the outdoors. We're going to build a business around our lifestyle, have a lifestyle around our business. Our office was, you would have loved it. It was super cash. It was flip-flops. It was shorts.
Yep.
The dogs were there every day. Back in the day, there was a thing called the Utah Gold Pass for skiing. It was good at every ski area. We had those, and we'd give them to our employees on the weekend if someone wanted to go skiing. We had fun parties. After you've been with us for a number of years, we'd send you to our house on Maui for a week and stuff like that. We took care of our people. We had a lot of fun.
So I knew some of this. I didn't know other parts. But this is exactly the type of employer I'm trying to be.
You should be. We should all be.
Yeah, this idea of hey, I want to treat people so well that they're look, sometimes it'll make sense for them to leave Macy Media, or maybe I can't give them the growth opportunities that they're looking for from a financial aspect or this or that. But one thing is for certain, they come work for me they are going to feel loved.
Yep.
They're going to be showered with kindness, and they're going to have some perks that they're just not going to get in the corporate environment.
Absolutely.
Because I want to be a human being and I want to treat them like a human being. And sometimes that just doesn't fit in corporate culture.
Yeah. And it doesn't work all the time with everybody, but you do your best.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things is we had several people leave the company, quit to go work somewhere else. And they came back and they went, I didn't know how good I had it here. And that felt good.
You don't know what you got till it's gone.
And then we actually hired some of them back, which is really fun.
Yeah.
And then they'd move on. It's funny, everyone would always, it was the joke. We'd come back from Maui after being there for a month. And after we'd been answering emails every day and talking to people, how was your vacation? And we'd always just laugh. We're like, it's not vacation. That's life.
Yeah.
We're right up to speed. We know exactly what's going on. Now we're moving. Greg will be there. I'll be here. And it was just always funny because they thought the second, as an owner, the second you walk out that door,
it's vacation.
You're not working.
Yeah. And you're like, no, we're doing double time. I promise you that.
I used to tell all my employees, I'm like, I hope you run your own businesses someday. I hope you go figure out what you want to do. You'll understand it's not a vacation when you walk out the door.
Yes.
It's just the way it is. But
it's hard for people who don't run their own business to ever understand that.
Yeah.
I used to be in a position, I was working for KSL, and I started to do some math. And the company was bringing in $80,000 per month on my product. I was making $55,000 per year, and they allowed me to hire one other person at $35,000 per year. So
1 month.
1 month, and the salaries are taken care of. And then we paid some freelancers $50 per article to write these articles.
Sure.
But we were charging $2,500 for advertisers to come in and do these articles. So I do some quick math and I'm like, wow. And at the time, I'm not fully thinking of how in a company like that, you have revenue generating positions and you have other positions that are important, but they're not directly tied to a revenue source.
No, they're expenses.
Exactly. And so, my young brain is sitting there and I'm like trying to get raises and I'm trying to get on a commission structure and a salary structure, right?
Sure.
And it's just not happening. And ultimately I actually really loved that job. It really filled my tank in so many ways. But that was one of the catalysts that said, Bobby, it's time to move on, was that I saw certain things and I recognized that I had maxed out there, right?
And everybody's different. Not everybody wants to run their own business. Not everybody can run their own business. Some people love to be a great employee. There is nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
We have employees that we hired at Chisco who are still there at the current company. It's not Chisco anymore.
Yeah.
We merged in 2008. They're still there. And they had any opportunity that anyone else had, but they loved what they were doing. They loved the environment. They had their job dialed. They had their security, whatever that meant to them.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, absolutely not. For me, one of the things that I recognized at that point, I started to get frustrated because I wanted something more.
Sure.
Now I look back and I'm like, oh my goodness. There are so many things that I just didn't know because youth and naivety, right? And it was one of those things where, every time I went and asked for a raise or this or that, they're probably thinking like, Bobby, why can't you connect these dots that there's like, yes, your product brings in a lot of money and it's great. However, a lot of that money is used in these other areas that don't bring in money. Right. And now I see that, and it's one of those things that I'm trying to balance, right?
It's always a balance.
Yeah.
It's always a balance. And as an entrepreneur, you're always playing that game. How can I increase rev while decreasing expenses, while having a life, while trying to put it all together? And it's not easy. And it's not for everybody.
No, it's not.
There's a lot of sacrifices. There's a lot of things. Our story sounds great, but of course we had good years and bad years.
Yeah.
We had horrible years. You have to hire and fire people, normal business things. It's not always sweet. We had lawsuits, of course, just because if you're in business long enough, you will have lawsuits.
You will have them.
It's just part of it's not if, it's when. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
We went through all the normal stages of any business. So
Yeah. I love that. And yet, during all of this time, you are still living a very intentional life.
always. Yeah. What else are you going to do? I don't know. We say that, and it's easy to say looking back, but we were trying to run a business. Then, I got married and had a family. That's a whole new dynamic, how that works, while running a business, while trying to travel, while, having a partner, blah, blah, blah. My brother, he and his wife don't have kids. They have animals. They love it that way.
Yeah.
Didn't want kids, and I did. And so my time then got, as you well know, totally upside down with families and trying to run a business and trying to travel and trying to do all that. And so there's times where it doesn't all jive, but you just keep working for that, towards that. And you can't forget that goal, though. That's the thing. You still got to get outside. You still got to go giggle and laugh every day, and if you're not laughing even a little bit every day, man, what are we doing?
What are we doing?
I mean, none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. What's yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery, we have today. Let's enjoy. And we're enjoying it now.
Well,
fun.
And you live this in a few ways. One of the ways that you live this is I see this because lots of the time when you and I are connecting, you're like, oh, hey, I'm about to go to Switzerland. I'm about to do this. You called me while you were on a hike up to Zermatt.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, my buddy's on the trail and I'm going to surprise him. I'll send you the video. And you did.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I love this, dude. I love that we're having this conversation, that I get to vicariously be a part of that, right? And now you've inspired me to do some things that I haven't done. And one of the first people I called when I booked my tickets to Switzerland was you, my friend.
You're going to have a great time.
And I can't wait. We're T-minus 2 months, right? And so you travel a lot, and you have traveled while raising kids. So in your opinion, what is the most valuable thing that travel has taught your kids from a parental view?
I think the biggest thing about traveling and just taking your kids everywhere you go, and that's what we did, is it gives them a completely different view. You remember your kids are typically in your house or in their school, and their world is really small. And by exposing them to travel and airlines and other people and cultures and styles and foods, they realize quickly the world's much bigger than home. And they realize that there's all kinds of people in a lot of different ways to look at things. So our kids put a lot of miles on airplanes, typically going back and forth to Maui.
Yeah.
But we did travel other places to see family and stuff. But they understood, and they understand the rules and the regs of, how things work. You wait in lines, you have baggage, you have this when you're traveling, you go somewhere else. We took them to a lot of restaurants, just out to eat. And I think that's important too, because there's a decorum. You throw a hissy fit. There wasn't 1, 2, 3. It's like, we're gone.
Yeah.
We leave dinner, you go.
Yep.
They don't do it again. And it's not to be mean. It's just that's not the way it works.
It's etiquette.
It's etiquette. Yeah. It's etiquette. But I think it just shows kids that there's more to life than their neighborhood, whatever that neighborhood is. It just gives them a little better, broader feeling, and that's what we've tried to do. We've always been really open with the kids about everything, so it's good.
I love that because I can't remember when it was, a year ago, 2 years ago, you, Miles, and I haven't met your daughter, hopefully one day, but you, Miles, and I go to Lucky 13.
Yep.
And we get our burgers and we're hanging out. And then I remember lunch is over and I'm like, I got some meetings, I got to beeline it. And I see Miles stick around to hang out with you. And I don't know how long you hung out in that parking lot, but from the moment that, I got in my car, drove around, I still had some visibility, get on 13 South, drive back. You and Miles are still there. And the nonverbal cues to me as a third-party observer were like, my dad is my hero. I love this dude with all my heart. And it is an absolute joy for me to share time with him right now. And
thank you. I don't know if I'm his hero, but I mean, we get along great. He's a great kid. He's 22, he'll be 23 this year. He's rocking his own world. He's definitely his own entrepreneur and has been for a long time.
Yeah.
He's just a good kid. He came up the house 2 nights ago to hang out, stay the night because he'd been traveling a ton.
Yeah.
Wanted to catch up on sleep and wanted to check in with us, which is really nice. So it's good.
Is incredible. And I think your intentional parenting was probably why you have that relationship with him now. And I imagine your daughter as well.
It's same, yeah. She comes up all the time. They're fortunate they both live in Salt Lake. They're both doing great things. Lily's at the University of Utah. She's a junior.
Surprise.
Yeah. She's surprised. They both went to the U. We get along with everybody. They get along with us. They want to be around us. We'd like to see them more. Absolutely. But it really started, I mean, at Chisco, they were around as kids. I mean, they'd come sit in my office with me. We'd play in the warehouse. Their favorite thing was going up on the forklift and the lift.
Yep.
In the elevators and stuff. I mean, they were just always around. So they understood that work was work. I mean, the dogs are at the office. Their uncle, my brother, was at the office. It's always, they've just been part of everything that we've done. So they've seen it.
It's like when Gary Vee explains that he's like, I grew up in that wine store.
His great story. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what his dad did. That's what he did.
Yep.
And then he took it to
new
extremes.
levels.
Yeah. And I hopefully Miles, and Lily both do that. So it's good.
So here's a question for you. And maybe this is transitioning gears a little bit, but I happen to know that you, along the way, have experienced massive amounts of adversity. Relationships, health, this, that, etc. What is one of the hardest things you've ever experienced, whether it's personal or professional, or whether it's a mix of the two? And how did you overcome that?
I don't know if there's a single one. There's multiple touch points in life. Losing my mom as a young guy was, and she was our playmate. Our dad was a great guy. He disappeared every morning, went to Wall Street, came home late. We didn't see him as much. Great guy. Just our mom was our confidant, our play friend. So when she died, that's turning point, big turning point. Having kids was a big turning point. They're both healthy, which is good. Getting divorced from their mom, that was 12, 15 years ago. Another huge turning point. Never thought I'd be a divorced dad. Didn't want it. That was her choice. It's okay. Long story, saved my life, in a lot of ways. Getting diagnosed with cancer, that's a wake-up call. That was 12 years ago when my wife divorced me. That was fun. Then health issues along the way, you just got to deal with it. But I'm not immune like we all go through it, But you got to put a foot forward the next day. You got to live on. I have a life to live. Someone else has their life to live, that's fine. I can't control anybody. Don't want to control anyone. So I got to worry about me, and I got to move forward, and I've got to take those steps to ensure that I'm doing what I want to do while I'm around.
I'm smiling, but you can see me.
I see it.
I'm emotional. And I think one of the reasons I'm emotional is because as I've gotten to know you, you've shared some of these things at varying levels with me. And yet I see you just persevere. And I see you choose every single day to get up. And 1 year ago, all of a sudden, I find out that you're in London.
Yeah.
And open heart surgery.
Uh-huh.
Now, I'm going to refer to my notes on this one because you were the 772nd person in the world to have this procedure.
I was.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the timeline is you've been doing your research. You find out that this procedure is not FDA approved in the United States. You want this specific procedure based on what you felt was right for you.
Yep.
So you fly to London. You arrive in London. You have open heart surgery. And 3 weeks later, you're jump roping and you're back in the U.S.?
Yep.
Dude, I remember you sending me a video. You might have still been in London at the time.
No, that was one where we got back from London.
Okay.
So this goes back to the cancer, and the name of the book will be Cancer Saved My Life. So I was diagnosed with melanoma in 2011. I joined a 5-year clinical trial at the Huntsman Cancer Institute, the most amazing humans on the planet. I don't know how they do that every day, but thank God they're all there. Mm-hmm. They're amazing people. Got through the clinical trial, no drugs. I joined a clinical trial that was just more of an observational, because I didn't want to do any of the chemo or any of the crazy surgeries that they offered. Again, my choice.
Yeah.
I directed my own healthcare on it the way I thought it would be. A lot of people disagreed with me, but I'm like, it's my choice, so I'm going to do it this way. At the end of 5 years, everything was fine. Run free, no cancer, no nothing. I beat it. Oh, by the way, you need to see a cardiothoracic surgeon. And I'm like, what for? Well, you have a growing aortic aneurysm, which I didn't even know what it was at the point. I mean, I knew, but I'm like, well, how long have you guys known I've had that? And they're like, well, 5 years since your very first scan. And I said, well, why didn't you say anything? And they're like, well, you had a lot on your plate. Basically, I was stage 3C melanoma. They thought the cancer would take me, so there wasn't really any need to talk to me about my aneurysm. Anyway, made it through cancer. Now, I got to go see a cardiothoracic surgeon. I found an amazing guy, Dr. John Doty. He's at Intermountain Healthcare here. And for 7 years, we watched this aneurysm, and it was growing a little tiny bit every year. So it's nothing I did. I was born this way. I was born with what's called a bicuspid aortic valve. Didn't know that either. And one of the side effects of the bicuspid valve is a aortic aneurysm, where your main artery in your body, your biggest pipe, is growing, ballooning out. And if it ruptures, you're gone before you even hit the floor. And many people who have, quote, heart attacks actually have a blown aorta. But it's the most common inherited heart defect on the planet. They think 2 to 3% of the overall planet have a bicuspid valve, and then therefore may have an aortic aneurysm down the road. So I knew I had it. We're monitoring it. Doctor's great. My blood pressure's fine. I'm super healthy. I work out. I'm lean. No issues. But it's sooner or later, I knew the day was coming where I had to fix it. And there's 2 methodologies on the planet. The one that's done in the US, and they do it all the time in Salt Lake. They do it everywhere. It's called the VSARR. It's called the valve-sparing aortic root replacement. They put you on a heart-lung bypass machine. They shut you off. Your DOA. Machine's keeping you alive. They pack your chest with ice. Surgery is 6 to 7 to 8 hours, depending on complications. They cut your aorta out, and they put a Dacron tube in and sew it in place and start you back up. Recovery's long, and there's typically a lot of problems. There can be leakage on either end. The tube is perfectly round. Your aorta is not. Your aortic root is not. And it's not the best way, but it's been done for years.
Yep.
It works. And I found out about another procedure that is not done in the US. And I asked my cardiothoracic surgeon about it, and he was kind of surprised. And he wrote the word down, pears, like the fruit, on a piece of paper. And he said, what you're describing is kind of being done, but they're not doing it here. So I went down the rabbit hole of the internet, which they always tell you not to do when you're trying to research something medical because you get scared. Anyway, I found these great groups of people online, ended up chatting with not only the guy who created it 20 years ago. He was patient number 1, a guy named Tal Goldsworthy. He's got a TED Talk on it. Talked to Tal a bunch. Then found out the Facebook groups who have people who have gone from the US over and done this lap, and they all just were very positive about it, and ended up talking to the surgeon, doing some video chats with him, and decided I'm going to London. I'm going to go do this lap. Then so many cool things happened. So my surgeon here, Dr. John Doty, he was the gentleman who told me about the surgery. He flew over, scrubbed into my surgery in London so he could physically see this procedure live.
Incredible.
He thought it was amazing. My surgeon there is the foremost. He's done more than half of those surgeries on the planet, so he was the right guy to do it. Yeah, and there are about 1,025 now, a year, 1 year out. My surgery was last March. I was number 772, and I'm still the only one in Utah.
Incredible.
So I'm one of whatever population is here. And I've helped several other people. Now I'm trying to be an advocate for anyone.
Of course.
So if anyone's trying to do the surgery, I'm like, ask me all the questions. So I've had several people, not from Utah yet. There's a couple of people here who are looking at it to fly over, but a couple other people in the US who've gone over to do the surgery. But I'm fine. So surgery, they do it on a beating heart. They don't turn you off. Surgery's 2 hours. Yeah, I got the full zipper. They cut you open, but
but you're here.
I keep all my own parts. They wrap your aorta with a custom mesh sleeve. It's really cool. And 2 weeks after 4 days after surgery, they let me walk out of the hospital with my wife Heidi, and we walked back to our apartment, and I felt pretty good. And then 2 weeks later, we flew back to the US, and it was just letting the bones heal. Since they didn't really cut anything out of me or replace anything, they just reinforced something. Recovery was simply the sternum to let the bones knit together.
Yeah.
So I was jumping rope, and they didn't want me doing my normal workouts for about 6 to 8 weeks. But by summertime, I was fine.
Can't
doing
stop,
everything.
burn.
Doing
Can't
everything.
Stop, won't stop, baby.
Yeah, no, it's just great, crazy story. But again, I put in my post on LinkedIn about, goes back to everything we're talking about. You got to be CEO of your own health. You've got to be CEO of your own life. Nobody recommended that I do this. I had doctors trying to talk me out of it. It's not approved. It's experimental. Like, it's been around for 19 years. They've had almost a perfect success rate. Why do you think you shouldn't do it? I talked to the Cleveland Heart Clinic, like Arnold Schwarzenegger has had 2 heart surgeries. He has a bicuspid valve. He did the standard surgery here at Cleveland Heart Clinic. They're the world-renowned or the US-renowned. They tried to talk me out of it. Amazing heart surgery center in Cleveland, but they tried to talk me out of it. Everyone tried to talk me out of it, but I'm stubborn.
But you've lived a life where, I keep coming back to the word intentional. You've lived a life where you see how the wind blows certain things, and you see how information can overwhelm people and cause people to do certain things, even if it's not the right thing. And you're a guy who is, like you said, the CEO of your own life, the CEO of your own health. And so it doesn't surprise me that you did this. The part that surprised me was that you're freaking skipping rope 3 weeks later, dude.
Yeah, but that shows the quality of this surgery over the other. And there's a gentleman I met here. It's such a crazy story. He had the VSARR here in Salt Lake. He's 32 years old. He's a young guy. I'm double his age. It's been a year later. He has had so many problems, and I feel so sorry. So his surgeon was my surgeon here.
Yeah.
He heard about me because his surgery was on a certain date, and he's like, yeah, my surgeon was leaving to London to go watch an experimental surgery. And I'm like, that was me that he flew over for. And we've gotten together. We had lunch a couple weeks ago. He's doing better, but he's had an amazing host of problems.
Wow.
And it's not just because of the surgery, most likely. It's his lifestyle, his whatever, his ailment. We're all a test subject of one. I certainly learned that up at Huntsman. It doesn't matter if we're twins. We're still going to have different, abnormalities and different things and different stuff. But it's just interesting to see someone who went the route that everyone recommended, and he's not doing as well.
Yeah. Well, what a metaphor for life, right?
Yeah.
Because I've had a few turning points in my life where people recommended X, Y, or Z path, and it's not what I did.
Right.
I remember when I became an entrepreneur, some people that were very close to me were like, you what?
Yep.
And now they see 5 years later that, oh, hey, he's paying his mortgage and then some, right? Those same people were the first to come and congratulate me when we got this Macy Media office, right? Yeah. I'm not the guy who pretends like everything's perfect. It's like, there are blind sides in life. There are turning points, as you referenced them
There's
to
no
be,
such
right?
thing as perfection, and to chase perfection is a waste of time.
Yes.
No one cares if it's perfect. Just enjoy what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. I'm a big James Taylor fan, one of his old songs, and
He's coming to town.
he's coming to town.
Is that this week?
I don't know. I don't.
It
I'm not
might
sure.
be tonight.
I've seen him plenty of times.
Yeah.
But he has a song. It's called "The Secret of Life is Enjoying the Passage of Time," and that's every day. Whatever you're doing, enjoy what you're doing, and it makes life move in a positive way. Is it always positive? Of course not. We all have crap that happens to us. We all have bad things that happen, but you got to move forward. My grandmother, my mom's mom, one of those unique souls. She lived in 3 centuries. She was born in 1899, passed away in 2001. One lifetime, she saw everything. But she lost her daughter, my mom. She lost one of her sons. She lost her husband. She outlived all of her doctors. She outlived everybody. And I remember, and she was fine up until the end. And I remember chatting with her and like, how do you deal with losing everyone? She's like, and that's what I said. She's like, I still have a life and I'm still here. And I still want to, you know, she did her 1,000 steps in her garden every day to stay in shape. And, but she put that one foot in front of another. You get knocked down, you got to get up and you got to move forward because you still have friends or a life or desires or whatever. And so that's that drive, I think, of every day of just saying, every day is not perfect, of course. Every day can't be full of fun and joy, but try to set it up as best as you can. Why not?
I love that. So I'm not going to keep you too much longer, but there are a few more questions I have for you. So you're going through cancer and your marriage has just ended. And then comes later a wonderful turning point in your life by the name of Heidi. Tell me about that. Tell me what she has done for you.
Well, so many things. So I love the kid's mom. I always will because I have 2 amazing kids and we were together 15 years. We certainly had a lot of fun. I'm sorry she decided to do other things, but that was her choice. And I wish her well. You know, she's still around. The kids love her. And we don't have a relationship of any kind, which is sad, but that was her choice as well. And she, I think, ran scared when I got cancer, and it's okay. She ran away. Not a fun time of life at all. And then once I was officially divorced, there was a lot of legal sadness right there, just a whole nother story. But once I was done with that and I was divorced and I was, with kids, I met a wonderful woman and we both kind of mutually clicked together. She had gotten divorced, didn't have kids, always talked about if I was going to have kids, I'd come in, I'd love them at 10 years old. I don't want to do the baby thing. And that's literally where I was. Lily was 9, Miles was 11. Heidi came into the picture and she has been the most amazing bonus mom, partner, everything. And she's an entrepreneur. She runs her own company, always has. Very strong-willed woman, which I love. And the kids love her. And it's been 10 amazing years. Going on 11 this year, so it's good.
I love that.
Yeah, really fun.
One of the best parts for me about that story is that, as you know, both of our wives are named Heidi.
It's pretty good.
And so it's so easy to ask
Must be the
about.
magic in the Heidi.
Right. How's Heidi doing? And my wife is stubborn as all get out. And it's one of her greatest strengths.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I know Heidi without knowing her.
Yeah.
And I just can't wait to meet her in person one day.
You will love her. And she's super magical and the strong-willed and just an amazing person. So I'm the happiest guy on the planet. I always say if it all ends tomorrow, 0 regrets. I am the luckiest guy. I'm so happy. Even though all the crap I've been through, that's what makes you appreciate the other stuff. That's what makes life go around. I mean, it has to work that way. And I'd absolutely be the happiest guy. I don't want to leave tomorrow,
Of course.
but I got no regrets and just kind of keep having fun every day,
Yeah.
I always tell my kids, and Miles and or Lily will tell you this, and it's not my quote, I forget where I got it from, but we get one ride on the spinny blue planet, might as well have some fun, might as well make it a good ride, I mean, what else are we going to do? Be productive, be a good person, help others, giggle and laugh every day is the way I always look at it. So.
Yep. Oh, I love that so much. I share that philosophy, as you know. So a couple more questions.
Sure.
I don't know if you're familiar with this poem, but there's a poem that I really like. It's called The Invitation by Uriah. And I was actually introduced to this poem it was this men's group, and it was called The Evolution Project. Shout out to my friend Brian Hurd. But he got a bunch of dudes together and essentially completed the task of getting them to talk about their feelings, and which was amazing.
Sure.
I've done this twice now. Really good experience. You read through this poem, and there's this line in this poem, and I don't remember it verbatim, but it basically, this is the gist. Factor in all the emotional wear and tear that you've had in your life with the turning points, positive, negative, this, that. Factor in the mental health, the mental toughness, the physical trials, running a business, the stress, the strain, all of this. Then there's this line in this poem that says, can you sit, when you find that nobody else is around and you are only with yourself and your thoughts, do you like the company you keep? You're nodding.
Absolutely. I'm such a solo lone wolf guy. Love being around people. One of my favorite things is to go skiing by myself and just disappear on the mountain. When I had troubles of any kind, whether it was business or personal, and I was in Hawaii, I'd get on my windsurf board and go blast by myself miles out to sea. And I'd turn around and the island looked about that big. And it was just you and nature. And yeah, pretty good. I like the company I keep a lot. Some people say I'm alone too much, which I laugh because I'm like, I always think I'm around people, but.
You're a pretty social guy.
Yeah, but I love my alone time. It's, perfectly content there.
I love that because I think that there are a lot of people. Now, I suspected that was going to be your answer based on my relationship with you. There are a lot of people who I think aren't in that position.
Oh, I know there are.
And they do not like the company they keep when they're alone with their thoughts. They haven't learned to be still. They haven't learned to manage their emotions, their feelings, any of that. And it's a journey, obviously. It's a never-ending journey. So final question that I have for you.
Final.
Wrap this up for me. You know that the name of this podcast is Be Somebody. What does it mean to you in tweet length version to be somebody?
All right. You have to be yourself, whatever that is. And to be somebody is that inner drive, that inner desire, whatever the person is searching for, looking for, desiring. And it's going to change. So be somebody now. And then it's okay if that somebody morphs, because obviously, you were someone, then you had a family, then being somebody, now you're a father and a husband and more responsibilities, and then running your own business. You're being somebody, again, a little different. And it's going to morph and change as your kids grow and your relationship grows and business grows. So being somebody is still being true to your true north, your own compass, but it's going to adjust and change. And, that's the poem that you were looking at that I posted on LinkedIn, about adjusting your sails when the wind blows so you can continue on your path, but that path is going to change and it's okay.
It absolutely is. So I'm going to give you a fist bump, and then I'm going to give you a big hug after I close this out. And we can take off our lav mics so they don't clap and make a nice noise. Thank you for watching this episode of the Be Somebody podcast. Just a wonderful reminder as we listen to Beirne to live intentionally and choose every single day to be somebody. Over and out, my friends.